is Victor Cross speaking to you, and my lovely co-host is
Odessa Orlowitz.
And you're listening to Liberty Talk Canada. I am very excited, very pleased indeed to have an old friend on the show for the first time. I've talked to Walter and other podcasts, but this is our very own podcast, Liberty Talk Canada, and this is his first appearance on that show. And for those who might not be familiar with the name Walter Block, hard to imagine, because after all, the man is a renowned economist. I think he's written numerous books over the decades, and Walter Block, he's an American economist, and has a Canadian citizenship as well, by the way, and libertarian theorist. He currently holds the Harold E. Worth Eminent Scholar Endowed Chair in Economics, and is a senior fellow at the Ludwig von Mises Institute. Walter, how you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on your show. It's a pleasure. Okay,
excellent. Well, Walter, recently I've heard you've been a very bad boy. What? You're a notorious character, I must say. I've been notified by Walter that in today's political climate, with social justice warrior, pink-haired communists who are absolutely frothing at the mouth, I won't say it, bat crap loony these days, the very nerve that they would have the temerity and the complete ignorance to attack this man by smearing him with labels such as sexist, racist, Nazi, and Walter has a Jewish background, if I'm not mistaken, right? So the idea of calling him a Nazi seems particularly ludicrous, but it's nothing short of insanity that we face today. And I'm sure probably Walter could say that times are probably even more loony today than they were, let's say, in the loony 60s.
And let me just say that I'm a woman, and I don't let any man talk down to me and tell me what my role is. And Walter, and I've checked with other women who've read everything that he's taught, Walter has never said anything sexist or racist in his teachings. And again, it's just the craziness of 2020 after coronavirus that we'll just call everybody a white supremacist, Nazi, sexist, that isn't with helping us with this left agenda. Even if it's not true, we've seen it happen to us. Even if it's not true, they hope that the people that aren't educated won't bother to read anything that he's taught or read, because gossip flies faster. So I just want to say, another crock of crap that he's ever said these kind of things. And I've checked with other women who have read all of his stuff.
Wow, excellent. Yeah. So just to flesh it out a little bit further of where what we're speaking of, as of late, there's a petition been circling around by these lunatics to have you fired. Is that correct, Walter?
Yes. Actually, I haven't been a bad boy recently. Well, I probably have also, but the main reason they're trying to get me fired is for stuff that I did quite a while back. So I was amazed. One day I just sort of saw something on the web that they want to get me fired, and they had like 500 people signing a petition. The main criticisms were racism and sexism. And happily, a former student of mine started a counter petition also on change.org, claiming that I should get a raise because I'm a great guy or something like that. And while the petition that wants to get me fired has about 500 or 600 signatories, the other one has almost 5,000. So we're 7 or 8 times bigger, the pro petition rather than the anti petition.
So where is it at right now with your job and the faculty above you that can decide, knowing about these 2 petitions? Where's it at?
Well, I think my job is very secure for 2 reasons. One, I have tenure. Yeah. And it's very difficult to fire someone who's got tenure. The problem is, people who don't have tenure see what's happening to me and think, well, maybe I'd better shut up, because if I let out a peep, they'll come get me. And I tell you, if I didn't have tenure, I think that I would have been fired long ago. The second reason is that the president of the university came out pretty well. I give her an A minus or maybe an A. She was pretty good. Tanya Tatlow said that not only do we favor academic freedom, but we favor ideological diversity. Because usually diversity, you think skin color, genes, or whatever, but she specifically mentioned ideological diversity. So my hat's off to her, and I'm very thankful to her for upholding the traditions of Western civilization and academic freedom. So I think that my job is very, very secure, but still, I look upon this as a learning experience, and I've written just recently. Well, I've written several times, once in the Loyola Maroon, which is the student newspaper, and also just the other day in the Wall Street Journal. And what I said is, I bear these students no ill will. Yes, they wanted to get me fired, and I disagree with them, but, my door is always open, certainly electronically, and I invited them to engage with me and dialogue with me, because I'm a big fan of John Stuart Mill, and in his On Liberty he says, look, you really don't even understand your own view unless you understand the opposite view, because your view is in sync with the opposite view. They're all part of the discussion, the dialogue. So I try to convince these students that I'm a beneficiary to them, because even if they never change their minds, having me on campus will enable them to understand their own views even better in contrast with mine. But unfortunately, unhappily, none of them have yet taken me up on this offer, but I don't know, where there's hope, where there's a will, there's a way, where there's always hope. They're just young kids, and students, I think, have a right to criticize their professors, but you want to have a little dialogue. You don't want to just criticize and say, fire him and I don't want to talk to him. Be much better from their point of view, and from mine also, because I want to promote good economics and liberty, to engage in a dialogue with me.
The reason why we're honored to have you on, Walter, is that you're showing this from like a really bad, big picture of what's happening to the universities right now,
yes,
where they're teaching hatred of the white man. And I truly believe that. I mean, did you guys know on Instagram, there was a meme or whatever you call it that says, mute the white man? Instagram had it. And it took a whole bunch of people to say, we're quitting Instagram, get rid of that. And after a couple of days, they got rid of it. But Instagram is promoting hate white people. Well, most white people are not racist. So this is what's insane to me.
Yeah, Walter, and just to flesh out your specific situation, we haven't got there yet, but just exactly this whole thing of like seeking to get you fired by these pink-haired lunatics. What's the pretense? To what are they responding to? To an article or to a class you gave, a lecture somewhere? Like, what's the pretense? If you could flesh that out as of being smeared with this pejorative of racist.
Well, I will answer your question, Victor, but first let me just reply very briefly to what Odessa said about hating whitey. White man created, I don't know, the Salk vaccine for polio. The white man created all sorts of, Mozart was a white man. Probably when COVID gets cured, it'll be created by a white scientist, probably a white male scientist. So I don't think that white people have anything to apologize compared to any other gender or race. Okay, now with regard to Victor, your question was, what was the pretext? Well, there were two pretexts. The main one was racism, and the other one was sexism. What was the racism one? Well, what happened in 2014, right after I met you, Victor, Rand Paul was running for office for the presidency. Donald Trump finally beat him out for the Republican nomination, but there was a time when Rand Paul was a possible Republican candidate. And the New York Times wanted to do a hit piece on him. And the thesis of their hit piece was, Rand Paul is a maniac. Rand Paul shouldn't be trusted because look at who he hangs around with. And then they did a vignette on about a dozen of us, and I was one of them. And the thesis was, well, these people are crazy. Ron Paul hangs around with them, therefore Rand Paul is crazy. So they were asking me, what is libertarianism? And I was trying to explain what libertarianism is all about. The non-aggression principle, private property rights based on homesteading. And the interviewer just wasn't getting it. And I had two hypotheses as to why he wasn't getting it. One, he was too stupid, which I rejected because I think he was a bright guy. And the other is he wanted to have me in a gotcha movement, a gotcha moment. And I complied. And I said, look, the essence of libertarianism is voluntarism. The voluntary interaction is okay. And then I went so far as to come up with this thought experiment about voluntary slavery. Voluntary slavery. And the example I gave is, God forbid my son has a horrible disease, and it'll cost $10 million to cure him. And you, the New York Times interviewer, are very rich, and you'll give me the 10 million, and I'll give the money to my son's doctors, and I'll save his life. And now I'll come to your plantation and pick cotton or give you economics lessons, and you can whip me or kill me just like a slave. And I said, in the case of all voluntary interactions, there's mutual gain, at least ex ante. Namely, I benefit because I value my son's life more than my freedom, and you benefit because you value my servitude more than the 10 million. You're very rich. So there's mutual gain. And now the question is, should this be a legitimate, illegal contract? And I said that even in libertarian circles, it's by no means unanimous that it should be, but in my view, it should be illegal. Because it's mutual gain and voluntary interaction. And I said there's nothing intrinsically wrong with slavery. There's only something wrong with coercive slavery of the sort that we had up until 1865 and still exists around the world and has been historically in existence. And you know what they did? They quoted me as saying that actual slavery was okay. Whereas I didn't say actual slavery was okay, that was coercive. I only said voluntary slavery was okay, and they quoted me as saying actual slavery was okay. So I sued them for libel, and we went around and around, and finally we settled on mutually agreeable basis, and they did retract. They said, Block, I'm just paraphrasing now, they said, we misconstrued him, we didn't say the right thing about him, he doesn't favor actual slavery. And in addition, they even said that Block has a long paper trail of favoring reparations for slavery. So if I favor reparations for slavery, actual slavery, I can hardly favor slavery itself. So what happened is that these students at Loyola University got hold of this and didn't read the retraction on the part of the New York Times and said that I favor slavery, or that I oppose slavery but for the wrong reasons because it's contrary to libertarianism and it's not immoral. Well, it's immoral also, actual slavery. So that was Exhibit A. That was case A in their criticism, their indictment of me as a racist.
So
then,
I want to, sorry.
Go ahead.
I noticed what you said slavery was, it's a contract. So when my kids are 19 and they have to go work at crappy Pizza Hut all day for 8 hours for crappy money, they're agreeing to do that because they need the money. So they're agreeing to work for a very rich person or people to flip pizza because they need allowance. My husband says the whole world's set up as slavery. We're all slaves. That's what I think. If you choose, I don't mean black slaves. I'm saying, I'm agreeing with you that it's an agreement to go in and work as a slave, meaning slave labor.
Yeah, but Pizza Hut is not a slave master.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Pizza Hut is a benefactor to your children because they're offering them a job that they're happy to have at that time, and hopefully, they'll become the manager or they'll become a dentist later on or whatever the deal is. But you don't want to use the word slavery too much, too promiscuously. I don't think we live in a slave society, and this voluntary slavery is just a hypothetical thought experiment to get to the essence of libertarianism, which is voluntarism. So I say
that's what I mean in voluntarism. My kids go to voluntarism because they need money, and it's a back and forth contract.
Yeah, Walter. Yeah, and I think I understand with this thesis that you're advancing of voluntary slavery, I did recently see your show with Adam versus the Man, and he kind of like called you out on, why use the word slavery at all, because it can just lead to misunderstanding. Why not, like, if you make a contractual arrangement for this doctor to save your dying child of a disease, and you'll work for it in that way. Why not call it indentured servitude?
Yeah,
or,
that was the point he made, that
yeah.
it really indentured servitude, but I disagreed with him. Adam Kokesh is another buddy of mine. He's a splendid libertarian, but, they say if you get 10 libertarians in a room and you ask them a question, you'll get 11 different answers. So Adam and I disagree. Look, indentured servants were never allowed to be whipped and certainly not killed. If you whip or kill an indentured servant, you're guilty of assault and battery or murder. Whereas with voluntary slavery, my master can kill me or whip me, and I can't say boo about it because I've agreed to that. So I think Adam is totally wrong. A lot of people take that view that Adam took, that somehow what I'm really talking about is indentured servitude, but that's not really correct. Voluntary slavery is very different than indentured servitude, because you can't kill or whip or maim an indentured servant, but you can do that to a voluntary slave, and that's a crucial difference.
Yeah. Now, Walter, a lot of people might find this conversation so far on this kind of talk very esoteric, and I think I'd like to just take one moment to explain why we're having a conversation of talking about definitions of slavery, voluntary slavery, indentured servitude. It might sound very esoteric and strange to a lot of our viewers. Walter and I come from a very philosophical common background, in the sense that we embrace the non-aggression principle. You cannot initiate force against innocent people, and of course, retaliatory force falls in an entirely different moral category. And with the infraction of rights by initiating violence against people, you have with that, of course, the big daddies that are staring you in the face of what's obvious to that: murder, theft, plunder, rape, kidnapping, confinement, you name it. But it's to equal part the non-aggression principle. It has to be physical force. That's how you violate somebody's rights, and also against their will. So if you could say that, physical force is against the non-aggression principle, I could very well say no, because let's say you're a professional boxer. It's your job to pound the crap out of each other, right? So, but that's voluntary. So with the voluntary slavery, is just another way of emphasizing and examining all the corners of what constitutes a violation of rights, which constitutes violating the non-aggression principle. And if somebody voluntarily engages in this kind of a relationship for whatever purpose, we could very well say, outside of the libertarian scope, well, it's kind of desperate, it's kind of immoral, blah, 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 blah. But it does not go against libertarianism. And it's just another way of fully fleshing out and understanding what constitutes a violation of rights, and what the non-aggression principle is about and what it's not about. Would that be a fair summation?
Not a fair explanation, an exquisitely excellent explanation. Yes, beautifully said. I applaud your deep understanding of what libertarianism is all about, and that's what I was trying to explain to the New York Times. The second indictment against me was sexism. And what I said was, why is it that we have a pay gap between men and women? Why is it that men earn, for every dollar a man earns, a woman earns roughly 70 cents, and therefore there's a pay gap of 30% or 30 cents? And I'm trying to explain why this is. And what I try to drum into my students and try to drum into my audiences whenever I write or speak is that what determines wages is productivity. The reason LeBron James and Michael Milken make a lot of money, high wage, is because they have high productivity. The reason that the three of us here make a middle-class income is because we have moderate productivity. The reason that Odessa's children, when they become, when they ask people if they want fries with that or they sell on pizza, will make a low income, a low salary, is because at that time in their lives, young people, they'll have low productivity. Productivity determines wages. So why is it that women have less productivity than men? Well, it's easy to see 2 centuries ago. 2 centuries ago, the way we knocked down a tree, we sawed the tree. And to saw a tree takes upper body strength. And men are stronger than women. Sue me for saying that, but it's true. The way we dig a hole to put a foundation in for a building is by a century or 2 ago with a pick and shovel, and men are stronger than women. But nowadays, the way we dig a hole is with a steam shovel and a bulldozer, and women can operate a steam shovel and a bulldozer just as well as men. And the way we knock down trees is with mechanical saws or electronic saws or whatever, buzz saws, and women can operate them just as well as men also. So why do we still, you see, a century or 2 ago, it's easy to see why we had a divergence in male and female income, wages, because of physical strength. Look, on average, men are stronger than women. There are women shot putters who could take the 3 of us and throw us 20 feet, and they're way stronger.
There are exceptions, yes.
There are exceptions, but on average, men are stronger than women. So that would explain why a century ago they had higher wages. Why now? Why is it that men are now still have a 30% pay gap? And the answer that I offered to explain this, and notice I'm doing positive economics, not normative economics. I'm not saying men should get more money. I'm just saying, why is it that they do get more money? And the answer is productivity. Well, how so? Given physical strength, it hardly matters. Well, it matters very peripherally, marginally, but forget about that. That could explain 1% or something. The reason I offered, and I got this from Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams and other good economists, Gary Becker, not original with me, is because of marital asymmetry. Now, how old are your kids now, Odessa?
14 and 11.
Okay, well, I predict that 10 years ago when they were 1 and 4, especially, and this is, I'm also married. My kids are a little older than your kids. My kids are probably older than you, but that's another issue. Women bear a disproportionate share of housekeeping, cooking, cleaning, baby care, diapering, certainly breastfeeding, obviously. Yeah. But in every other way, women have the lion's share of household jobs. Mm-hmm. And we have an insight in economics called alternative costs. What is alternative costs? Alternative costs means whenever you do anything, you do it at the cost of not being able to do something else as well as otherwise could have been done. My favorite examples of this are Yo-Yo Ma and Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt is the fastest man on the planet. He has the world record in the 100 and the 200. Is he a good cello player? No. I don't know this, but I assume he's not a great cello player because he spends all his day running and lifting weights and doing other things that sprinters do. Yo-Yo Ma is the best cellist on the planet. How good is his 100-yard time? Well, probably not that good, even if he's in reasonable shape, because he's spending all his day playing the cello. So whenever you do anything, playing the cello, you do it at the cost of not being able to run. And whenever you run, you do it at the cost of not being able to play the cello as well as you otherwise could have.
So I had this conversation as a woman because I'm very, I think women should have equal rights, but my husband and I watched, it was another economist, I can't remember who, and they said that if you actually look at the hours, they're not saying that if a woman works 8 hours in an office doing the exact same job as a man for 8 hours in an office, they're saying that yes, they should be paid the same if they produce the same amount, which many women do. But they said that it's false that women actually are paid 30% less on the dollar for the same job, 8 hours. Apparently, that's actually not true. And it's that we do part-time, we do less hours, we have to leave early to pick up the kids, and that it's actually on an hourly basis, we have less hours, and that's what makes it look like we're paid 30% less. I know I've been in situations where you see that some men that aren't even as good at their job are getting paid more than some women who are better at the job just because it's been like that. So I actually think that this does happen, But I wasn't sure if this was right, that this other economist said it's actually a fallacy, and it's because we have to leave to have babies, we're in and out, and that we actually put in less hours in the office. Doesn't mean we're lazy, it's that we're juggling two things. And many women, including me, choose my son's well-being over being richer. And that's life.
Absolutely. Well, I agree with you. I think that, that not only do men get more money per year, but they also get more money per hour. So it's not just the matter that women work fewer hours. They do work fewer hours, which would account for a weekly or a monthly salary, but even per hour, women earn less. Why? Because they're less productive. Why? Because they've got half their mind on their kids, whereas the man only has 1/4 of his mind on the kids and can do a better job at work. There was once a cartoon where there was a husband and wife. They both had a PhD in chemistry. They both work the same time. They both have the same PhD from the same place, and they come home. And what does the wife say to the husband? What does the husband say to the wife? "What's for dinner, dear?" Namely, she's going to be doing the cooking. So part of her mind is on the cooking, the shopping, the cleaning, the kids. And so even if they're doing the same job, she's probably not doing it as well as him because of this opportunity cost. Namely, she's got other things that she's concerned about more so than him. Now,
okay, so I just want to say that we're all being honest here. What I like about this conversation is that we're allowed to have it. No one's going to be put in jail for it. We're allowed to disagree. And this won't be censored by media. So I agree with you on some stuff, Walter, but what I do disagree about is that, I wouldn't say the majority of women are less productive with 8 hours and 8 hours. First of all, lots of women don't have children. Second of all, a lot of women in the office, their children are grown and gone. From my experience, I've worked with a lot of men. It's the women that get shit done more than the men in a lot of experiences. However, yes, we have women who are very into their children. We do spend less hours thinking about work. We don't want to be on our computers till 11 at night when we've got kids. So I feel there are things that get in the way of a woman's career that are just nature. We breastfeed. We can't blame men for that. Don't blame men for that. So God has given us a different role, but I want to say I disagree with you that most women are less productive in the office when they are focused. Well, but I'm glad that we can disagree.
Let me try to convert you to the one true faith. I've got 2 proofs of my thesis, which would undermine your views. And I say this with respect. And I appreciate what you're saying, that, if we disagree, well, so we disagree. But, you're not going to try to get me fired from my job. I'm not going to try to get you fired from your job. Or, we're just, as Adam Smith says, John Stuart Mill says, if you want to learn, you can only learn by discussing, and we are now discussing. So let me give you 2 bits of evidence or 2 proofs that what I'm saying is correct. First of all, this 30% gap is if you compare all men and all women. But when I was at the Fraser Institute, I was working on this, and we asked the Statistics Canada, to do a special thing on male and female income, which they had already done, but we wanted to do it by marital status. And we wanted to divide both males and females into ever married and never married. So what's ever married? Ever married is married, widowed, divorced, separated, touched by marriage in some way or other. What's never married? Never married is never touched by marriage, that institution. You're not widowed, you're not divorced, you're not separated, you're not married, nothing to do with marriage. And we wanted to get them to calculate the male-female ratio for ever and never married. And you'll never guess what happened. What happened was, first of all, they didn't like that because they were biased. But the result was that the ever married, the wage gap was not 30%, the wage gap was 60%. And what was the wage gap for the never married? No wage gap. Okay, when I say no wage gap, it's not 1.0. Sometimes you get 0.95, sometimes you get 1.05. But you take a whole bunch of statistical things based on age, based on education, based on all sorts of things, and the wage gap disappears for the never married.
The never married women and men.
The never married women and men have no wage gap.
Okay, that's interesting.
So therefore, the 30% wage gap between all men and all women is mainly due to the ever marrieds. And their gap is much bigger than 30%, something like 50 or 60%. Mm-hmm. The second bit of evidence or proof that my thesis is correct, that it's marital asymmetry, is, what do you call it? Oh yeah, the profits. If it were really true that a man and a woman have equal productivity of $20 an hour, mm-hmm. and the man is making $20 an hour, and the woman is making $15 an hour, well, then there's a gigantic profit to be made by hiring a woman and firing a man, and we don't see that. We don't see anyone firing men and hiring women. We don't see greater profits in industries where there are more women. And if ever we did, there'd be a divergence of resources from the industries where there are low profits, namely women, to the one where there are low profits with men to high profits with women. We don't see any of that. And then there are other phenomena. There's this thing called the trailing spouse. You and your husband, Odessa, you're living in Vancouver, mm-hmm. right? And one of you is going to get a job in Toronto or in God knows where, Boston, and you're going to make triple.
Yeah.
What you're making now. Well, if it's the husband that has that, you're much more likely to do it than if it's the wife that has that, because the wife, let's say you're newly married and you're thinking of having 3 kids, and the 3 kids are going to be separated by 3 years, and by the time the youngest one is in high school and more independent, it's 15 years or 12 years or something like that. So what's the point of you going to Toronto and having your husband be the trailing spouse? No, you're going to be the trailing spouse. So even if you have the same productivity, and even if you forget about this alternative costs and all that stuff, let's say you never have kids, still your productivity is going to be lower than your husband's, because you're acting as if you're a company, a firm that want to maximize family income, and much better to have the husband have the high income than the wife, because the wife, if she has kids, is not going to be in the market anyway. So there are a whole bunch of phenomenon, whole bunches of reasons that indicate that productivity is the key. And if it were really true that the woman was doing more than the man for the same 8 hours or whatever, there'd be profit opportunities to keep her, because if she leaves, she's taking a lot of profits. It's as if everyone has a little sign on their forehead. Suppose there really was a 30% pay gap. The thing on every woman's forehead would be, hire me and you make more profit. Well, that's not equilibrium. In basic microeconomics, in equilibrium, there's no profit. So this is a non-sustainable situation. If the woman really was more productive, her salary would rise because the employer would be afraid to lose her. Whereas I'm not particularly afraid of losing a woman more than the man, which shows that there's a tendency in equilibrium for wages to equal productivity. And so that would be my argument.
And I just want to add to that story, and then Victor, go ahead. One thing I noticed about these 19-year-old people, 19-year-old women and 18-year-old and the women in university, the majority of them have never had a kid. So us wise old 46-year-old women are looking at these young women who have never had a family, never had to deal with the time it takes to rear a baby, toddlers, how your heart, we are designed to be like this with our kids more than men. It's just in the genes. And anyone that gets mad at me, well, sorry, but there's a lot of us women saying that. Ask any wife who's more intuitive with the kid when something's wrong, who knows. And it's always like, oh God, my husband has no idea. He could be drowning in the tub and I have no idea. Now I might have men mad at me for that, but in a family situation, we just are different. And so when we see all these young women that are angry, it's like, you go have a baby and a family dynamic, and you're going to see how bad you need your man. You need your man so badly, and you want him. Go get the bacon because I'm freaking tired, and I have to be the breast for this baby. So if you haven't experienced that as a woman, you actually don't have a full concept of how it is.
Another indication is that the wage gap between males and females aged 15 to 20, no wage gap. Why? Because it's a proxy for marriage. Very few people 15 to 20 are married. Mm-hmm. So again, we pile up the evidence higher and higher. And the indictment against me from the Loyola students was, well, I'm a sexist. But remember, I'm not saying that women should be paid less. That's a different issue. That's a normative question. I'm talking about the positive question. Why are they being paid less? I'm trying to explain and understand economic reality, and my best understanding of this is that it's because of different productivity, which stems from different alternative costs, mainly marriage.
And I just want to add one more thing. Now, the media, in this interview, the mainstream media would cut out everything you've said right now and only show that 5 sentences of women are less productive, and that's it. Now I'm watching the whole thing, and this is the problem with media right now. I was ready to be upset at you, but I waited the whole time and go, okay, and I can agree with most of it or not. And that's what I love about Canada and the States, but it's changing. And I do agree with most of you once you explained it, but mainstream media won't let you. Okay, Victor, sorry.
No, that's okay. No, hey, I'm an audience right now. I'm enjoying this show. It's great. Yeah, Walter. I think there's 2 component parts there. Like as you know, briefly, that when it comes to wages, it's not the factory owner or the business owner that arbitrarily decides what wages will be. That there's based on supply and demand. So it's not the worker's need, it's not the employer's greed. It's all determined by mathematics. But in this case, I guess you're also ushering in a biological explanation in regards to all of this, right?
Right, and there are other explanations too. More men get killed on the job. Men take more dangerous jobs than women. And when you have a dangerous job, you get paid danger pay, extra pay. So there are lots of explanations as to why there's this gap. But none of it is based on discrimination. And our friends on the left are saying, well, capitalism is evil. Capitalism discriminates against women. It's just incorrect.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these justice warriors, I think they're probably attacking you. Maybe there could be a legitimate misunderstanding on a lot of their parts where they think that you're making a normative proposition. Women should get paid less, so and other people are just thoroughly intellectually dishonest, of course, so I've seen that up front. So with this explanation of everything that you just spelled out, to get you a raise actually should see the triumph of the day. Don't you think so, Odessa? So
well, I don't think I'm going to get a raise. I'll be happy to keep my job. I love my job, and I do want to emphasize that don't not come to Loyola because you're afraid that Loyola is social justice warrior. Every university practically is social justice warrior. But we have an advantage over most, and that is all 4 of our econ department is free enterprise, Austrian libertarians. We must have almost a dozen professors who are free enterprise, believe in Western civilization, private property rights, and that's out of only a faculty of about 250. Next door to Tulane, they've got a faculty maybe triple our size, 700 or so, and there are only 2 professors who are free enterprise. And down the street in Baton Rouge, they must have 1,200 professors and 0 libertarian free enterprise professors. And I know that because I gave a lecture there to 300 kids, and I said, are there any free enterprise professors here? And nobody said squat. So I think, Loyola is in the news now in a bad way because, they're trying to get me fired. But this occurs at every university, certainly in UBC and Simon Fraser, University of Victoria. well, SFU is not so bad. They got a few free enterprise people there, but very few free enterprise professors. I mean, the sociology department's got 0 usually, and they're all a bunch of lefties. So there is a bias in not only academia, but in Hollywood and in the major media. The left wing is taken over a lot of institutions, and that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah, and regarding this, these kind of ideas spreading and coming from the universities, with my talk coming up at Libertarian Talks on August 15th, I'll be touching on the basis of some of that. Walter, just on an anecdotal level, I'd like to tell Odessa and our audience of how I came across you. I love telling this story. That what was it? UBC, that university? Yeah, UBC.
You were debating some pinko.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was debating a communist, but under the Zeitgeist banner, Peter Joseph and whatnot. It's just like a technological explanation for a fair and just equal distribution of the goods, you know. And so I was debating this guy. I thought, well, yeah, I'll take it right to the university students, right? And this is before I had a channel or anything like that. I thought, yes, it's a matter of going to the university. So I had a debate there. And somehow, now, here's the thing. Of course, I've known about you. You didn't know me, but I've known about you for, 20, 25 years or whatever. I've read your book. I know Walter Block because I do a lot of reading. So even when I was like a young buck, I was reading a lot of these, different books and reading your work. So I've seen your picture. I know of your petition, of course. So there I am at this university debating this guy before all these students. And I'm looking up into the rows, how they have the cascading rows of seats and things like that. And I'm looking around, just taking a general scan of the room. And then I zero in on you, and I thought, what? Is that Walter Block?
That's because I'm a pretty face. That's why.
Yes, that's it. I think you should replace the Aunt Jemima bottle on the label there, just to prove that you're not a racist, But yeah, so it was like I could hardly believe it. I was almost thrown off from my debate there, But lo and behold, not only do I see Walter Block there, I was practically doubting my senses. Is it or just somebody that looks like Walter? And so after the debate, and after the Q&A and all of that, you came down and introduced yourself, and it's like, lo and behold, I'm shaking Walter Block's hand, who shook the hand of Mary Rothbard, who shook the hand of Nathaniel Brandon, who shook the hand of Ayn Rand, who shook the hand of von Mises, as well. Okay, von Mises. Okay, yeah. So it was quite an extraordinary experience for me, and it's been a pleasure knowing you all of these years and giving talks and spreading the word, as they say. But Walter, we've unless you have any final remarks you would like to comment about, I think we've stolen you for about an hour now, and I said a half hour, but I've enjoyed the conversation very much and listening too.
My final remark is to thank the two of you for having a wonderful conversation, and hopefully we're doing some of the Lord's work. We're promoting liberty, and it's been a pleasure, and I hope to be on your show again.
Oh yeah, most definitely. We will do that.
Thanks, Walter. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers. Now. Victor Pross signing out with my lovely co-host
Odessa Horowitz from Liberty Talk Canada.